They called him dangerous, broken, forgotten by the very force he once served. But when a little girl vanished, and every lead went cold, it was the dog they threw away, who came back. And what he did next silenced an entire nation. Welcome to Heroic Animals, where we tell real, emotional stories of extraordinary dogs and animals who rose when no one else could. If you love tales of quiet bravery, unexpected twists, and four-legged heroes without badges, you're in the right place. Stay with us for today's story. And trust me, you'll never look at a canine the same way again. They used to call Max the four-legged legend of the Brookvale Police Department. For 5 years, the Belgian Malinois K9 served with distinction, 47 search and rescue missions, 12 armed apprehensions, and more than one instance where he saved fellow officers from the brink of death. But in the eyes of the department and the public, memory is short. All it took was one mistake. It happened on a gray March afternoon. During the narcotics raid at an abandoned vehicle lot, the team had orders to storm in. Max was deployed to intercept a suspect fleeing on foot. Only, the man wasn't armed. Just a delivery assistant in the wrong place at the wrong time, running out of panic. Max didn't know that. Trained for years to act fast. He lunged, restrained the figure as he was taught. In the struggle, a nearby officer stumbled and dislocated his shoulder. No fatalities, no serious injuries, but it was enough for the brass. K9 Max, no longer fit for active duty. Max was pulled from the roster that same week. No farewell ceremony, no final pat on the head. His handler, Lieutenant Harris, didn't even look him in the eye as he signed the discharge order. Just a closed-door meeting, followed by a quiet van ride to the Brookdale Animal Shelter. Attached to Max's kennel was a tag that read, "Not suitable for retraining, do not place near children, reactive to verbal commands." Max curled in the corner of his cage. He didn't bark, didn't growl. His once proud frame was thinner now. His right leg still wrapped in gauze from the incident. The high-protein K9 food had been replaced with the shelter's generic dry mix. But his eyes, they hadn't changed. Sharp, focused, watching every person who walked by. And when someone wearing even a hint of a police uniform passed, Max perked up. Waiting, listening, hoping for an order that would never come. Emily was a shelter volunteer. Fresh out of college with a degree in psychology. She'd come to work with stray cats and under-socialized puppies. But it was Max who stopped her in her tracks. "That one's not adoptable," the supervisor warned. "Aggressive history. He's just too far gone." But Emily didn't see that. She saw a dog who never barked without reason. Who stared too long at every police car. Who flinched, not from fear, but recognition. Every day, she'd sit near his cage. At first from a distance. Then slowly. Closer. Max never approached. But he never looked away either. There was something in his stillness that whispered, "I'm still waiting for duty." One rainy afternoon, Emily tried something different. In a forgotten supply closet, she found an old police cap. Dusty, torn, but still bearing the silver badge emblem. On a whim, she placed it gently in Max's cage. He didn't react. Not at first. But that night, checking the overnight security camera, she froze. The image showed Max curled up tight in the corner of the cage. Head resting against the old cap. Not chewing, not tearing it apart. Just resting. Like a soldier dreaming of orders he still wanted to follow. Emily's heart ached. Whatever the file said, whatever the incident report claimed, this was not a dangerous animal. This was a dog with a purpose no one believed in anymore. The next morning, Emily made a quiet decision. She would take Max out, just for one walk. Just once. Just to see if the hero inside him was still alive. The leash was frayed. The old nylon collar barely fit around Max's neck. But when Emily clipped it on and opened the gate, the dog didn't resist. He stepped out with purpose, as if the kennel walls had been holding back something more than muscle. He didn't tug, didn't run, but every step he took outside was different. He moved low and steady. Head tilted slightly, ears twitching with each gust of wind. Emily walked him through the side alley and out toward the path behind the shelter. It bordered a stretch of woods and a quiet neighborhood. Just beyond the trees, less than a mile away, sat Brookhaven Park, now sealed off with yellow tape. That's where Lily had vanished 3 days earlier. 6 years old, last seen on the swings. Her backpack was found in a trash bin. No signs of struggle, no witnesses. Just gone. The entire town was shaken. But Leeds had gone cold. Emily hadn't intended to go that way. But Max did. As they neared the trail behind the park, he slowed, then stopped. His body tensed. His nose twitched. And then, without warning, he growled. Not loud, not savage, but deep, low, and ancient. Emily froze. Max? He didn't look at her. He looked into the trees. The trail ahead split off into a maintenance road rarely used. Overgrown, shaded, muddy from last night's rain. Max began to pull, not wildly, but firmly. He wasn't chasing squirrels. He wasn't curious. He was tracking. Emily followed, her heart thumping harder than she expected. She didn't know why. This wasn't her job. She wasn't a cop. She didn't have a badge or a reason. But Max had one. He led her into the woods. Step by deliberate step. 20 yards in, Emily saw the first oddity, a patch of disturbed soil. Leaves brushed aside unnaturally. Max sniffed, circled twice, then moved on, deeper into the trees. They found a half-torn ribbon of fabric, pink, with a cartoon unicorn print, just like the ones Lily's mother had described on the news. Emily's hands trembled. She pulled out her phone and snapped a photo. Max was still moving, now faster. They crossed a shallow stream and came to an old metal fence. A gate hung loose on rusted hinges. Behind it, an abandoned shed, wooden, with peeling paint, and a door slightly ajar. Max stopped. He didn't bark. He stared. And then, with slow precision, he stepped forward and placed his paw on the threshold. Emily's breath caught. The air here was different. Heavy. Cold. She reached for the handle. But before she could open the door, Max lunged sideways, knocking her to the ground. At that exact second, crack, a wooden board above the shed entrance snapped loose and crashed down, right where she had been standing. Emily gasped, eyes wide, heart racing. Max stood over her, unmoved, ears back, staring at the shed like it was alive. "Why, you just saved me," she whispered. He didn't react. His eyes were still locked on the door. They called the police. The officers who responded tried not to show their skepticism. A volunteer, a washed-up dog, a gut feeling. It didn't look good on paper. But the pink ribbon changed things. So did the proximity to where Lily vanished. And when the forensic unit arrived and swept the shed, they found scrape marks inside, like someone had been dragging something heavy. That night, Emily sat on the edge of Max's kennel, watching him sleep for the first time since she met him. Not restlessly, not rigid, but truly asleep. Whatever he had smelled, whatever he had known, he had held onto it. Even when no one believed in him. Even when they left him behind. Emily leaned her forehead gently to his. "We're not done, are we?" Max's eyes flickered open, and deep within them, she saw it. That same burning ember she'd seen in every K9 story on the news. The fire they said had died. It hadn't. Not even close. At first, the shed looked empty. Dust, cobwebs, moldy wood, a few rusted tools scattered along the back wall. Nothing that screamed foul play. But Max wouldn't move from the door. He stood like a sentry, ears forward, tail low, body tense. Then the cadaver dog arrived. A younger retriever named Marley. Still in training, she sniffed the shed's interior. Then hesitated near the far corner. Her handler gave a sharp nod. Hit. They tore up the rotted floorboards within the hour. Beneath them, buried under old plastic sheeting and a broken trapdoor, lay a cavity no one knew existed. A crawlspace carved into the earth. Barely 5 feet deep, the stench hit hard. They found shredded blankets, empty food wrappers, a small pink shoe. Emily stood just outside the caution tape, hands trembling as she clutched Max's collar. He didn't bark, didn't whimper, but his eyes never left the hole in the floor. And neither did hers. She was here, Emily whispered. She was really here. Inside the makeshift chamber, forensics found more. Small scratch marks along the wall, child height. Fingernail scrapes. Blood, faint but confirmable with luminol. And something else. A zip-tied bracelet made from rubber bands. The kind little girls braid for each other. Initials were drawn on the side in faded ink. LC. Lily Carson. It was no longer a missing person case. It was a confirmed abduction. The discovery made local headlines within hours. Breakthrough in Lily Carson case. Police reopened file after new evidence found in woods. But no one mentioned Max. No one said that the dog they discarded was the reason Lily's trail hadn't gone cold forever. Emily didn't care about press conferences. She cared about that small glint of vindication. And Max? He didn't seek praise. He just sat by the window of the shelter that night, watching the street, watching for something, or someone. When Emily approached with his dinner, he didn't eat right away. Instead, he nudged the food aside and looked back toward the woods. The next morning, detectives brought Emily in for a formal statement. They had reviewed body cam footage, analyzed photos, cross-referenced the bracelet. There was no denying it. Lily had been kept there. But the bigger question was, where had she gone next? And who had moved her? One of the investigators, a younger man named Perez, seemed intrigued by Max. He reviewed the report Emily had submitted, along with Max's history. "This dog," he said, "he was trained for search, right?" "More than trained," Emily replied. "He lived for it." Perez leaned forward. "Then I want to try something." That afternoon, they returned to the shed. Perez brought something with him, a scrap of Lily's clothing, donated by her mother for scent tracking. He knelt beside Max and let him sniff it. Max froze. Then, like someone had flipped a switch, his entire body lit with alertness. He stood. He turned toward the trees, not the same path as before, but a new direction. Parallel to the stream. Perez looked at Emily. She didn't need to say anything. They followed. For over an hour, Max led them through brambles, across uneven terrain, under a rusted fence long forgotten. He paused twice, ears up, body rigid, then continued, until he stopped beside a large storm drain near the back of an industrial zone. Concrete tunnels, graffiti, empty beer cans, and something else, a child's stuffed rabbit, dirt-eaten, waterlogged, one ear missing, but unmistakably Lily's. Max sat down. Not a bark, not a growl, just stillness. And Perez said the words Emily had been waiting to hear. He just reopened this case. The storm drain yawned like a mouth into the side of the hill, graffitied, moss-covered, with a faint, foul smell drifting out. Perez clicked on his flashlight. "You sure about this?" Emily looked down at Max. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. He stood poised at the edge of the tunnel, nose twitching, body alert. "He hasn't been wrong yet," she said. The officers descended into the dark, one by one, ducking low under the concrete arch. Max went first. Emily followed, her heart thudding. Each step inside was colder than the last. The tunnel stretched for almost 200 feet, occasionally branching into smaller side passages. It was tight, damp, and claustrophobic. Max moved with precision, stopping now and then to sniff the walls. At one point, he paused, tail stiff, and growled softly. That's when Perez saw it, a red thread, snagged on a rusty bolt. He carefully plucked it free. Fabric, tiny, like from a child's shirt. And further in, chalk markings on the concrete. Small symbols, circles with slashes, arrows pointing inward. "This isn't graffiti," one officer whispered. "This was drawn with intent." Max pressed on. Then they found the hatch. It was an old steel panel set into the floor at the end of a drainage fork. Bolted long ago, but the bolts had recently been removed and screwed back loosely. Perez dropped to one knee. Tugged gently, it moved. Max backed away, teeth bared. The hatch swung open with a loud screech. A narrow ladder led down into darkness. And from below, a whimper. Faint, human. Everyone froze. Then Max growled, short and sharp, and bounded forward. Emily barely had time to grab her flashlight and follow. The chamber below was a forgotten basement, maybe once part of an old sewage maintenance building. Now, it was something else. There were mattresses on the floor, chains bolted to the walls, a folding chair, a single, bare light bulb strung from the ceiling by an orange extension cord. And in the corner, a cage. Inside it, huddled and dirty, was a young girl, alive. Her name wasn't Lily. It was Maya, 8 years old, missing from a town over 90 miles away. She'd been gone for nearly 2 months. The moment she saw Max, she shrank back, terrified. But he didn't bark, didn't move forward. He lay down, low to the ground, inching slowly toward her, tail wagging gently, eyes calm. It took nearly 5 minutes. But then she crawled forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Emily cried. Perez radioed in for backup and medical. And Max? He just stood guard. Again. Hours later, as Maya was carried out under blankets and soft reassurances, Emily sat beside Max in the back of the transport van. She stroked his ears, eyes red. You just found a little girl they all forgot about. He leaned his head on her shoulder. Outside, reporters gathered. Police set up tape. The case had now gone from missing child to multiple victims. And then came the twist. From the chamber, investigators recovered an old phone wrapped in plastic and stashed behind the cinder blocks. On it, photos. Dozens. Children. Locations. Timestamps. One of them, Lily Carson, standing beside a man. Tall, wearing a uniform, a Brookvale police badge clearly visible on his chest. Emily stared at the screen in silence. And Perez said it first. He's one of ours. The man was blurred in the photo, but Max stood up suddenly when another officer walked by. He tensed, growled, deep, low, dangerous. Emily watched him carefully, and in that moment, she knew. Max remembered him. The photo was grainy, but the badge number was just clear enough. 9475. It belonged to Sergeant Dean Huxley, a 17-year veteran of the Brookvale Police Department, and Max's former shift supervisor. He wasn't just part of the K-9 unit. He was the one who signed off on Max's removal. The man who called him unstable. The man who said Max had lost control. The man Max now growled at through clenched teeth. Captain Rourke summoned a closed-door meeting the next morning. No media, no chatter, just core personnel, internal affairs, and the K-9 files from 3 years back. The room was silent as the photo was projected onto the screen. There was no denying it. Huxley stood next to Lily Carson in what looked like a storage room. She appeared unharmed but terrified. His hand gripped her shoulder. And Max? He paced in the hallway outside, tail low, ears twitching, sniffing the door. He knew something was wrong. Emily sat beside Perez, her knuckles white. He remembered Huxley. She whispered, the moment he passed by. I've never seen Max react like that. Not even in the tunnel. Perez nodded slowly. Which means Huxley wasn't just connected, he's the reason Max was silenced. That thought sat heavy in the air. What if Max had reacted to something 3 years ago? What if he'd sensed a child hidden in a suspect's car? What if he'd tried to intervene, and was punished for it? And worse, what if no one had believed him? Until now. By mid-afternoon, Huxley had gone, on leave. Not suspended, not arrested, just vanished. His patrol car was missing from the station lot. His house locked, his phone disconnected. Internal affairs called it a delay. But Max knew better. He paced by the station door all night, watching, waiting. Emily stayed with him, curled on the cold linoleum floor, hand resting on his back. He didn't sleep. Neither did she. The next morning, a tip came in. A hiker had spotted a black police SUV on the edge of Blue Rock State Park. About 30 miles north, abandoned, hidden near a side trail. A backpack and empty coffee thermos in the driver's seat. No sign of Huxley. But nearby, a footprint. Small, worn shoes. Child-sized. The worst-case scenario reawakened. He had Lily. And he was running. Captain Rourke didn't hesitate this time. Full alert. All local agencies mobilized. Helicopters scanned the tree lines. Ground units moved in pairs. But Emily said one thing that stopped them cold. You're looking in 1,000 places at once. Why not ask the one who's already found her twice? Max was loaded into a search van with Emily and Perez. At the trailhead, the lead officer held out Lily's bracelet, retrieved from evidence and sealed in a scent-safe bag. Perez knelt beside Max, unzipped the bag. Max leaned in, sniffed once, then twice, then growled, not out of anger, but certainty. He bolted from the van before they even unlatched the door. Straight into the woods. Emily chased him through the brush, her legs scraped and lungs burning. But Max never slowed. He darted between trees, across rocks, over a creek. The trail twisted and narrowed. But he kept moving, like he was drawn forward by something deeper than scent. And then, he stopped. Dead quiet, ears high. Ahead, just beyond a fallen tree. A figure. A man, holding a child. Huxley. And Lily. Max didn't bark, didn't growl. He stepped forward, low and deliberate. Emily raised her hand, whispering into the radio. Visual confirmed. We have them. But just as she spoke, Huxley turned. He saw them. He ran. And Max launched forward like a bullet. Huxley vanished into the forest with Lily clutched under one arm, crashing through branches like a wounded animal. Max didn't wait for commands. He lunged forward, paws pounding the earth, eyes locked on the man who had once fed him, trained him, and betrayed everything he stood for. Behind them, Emily shouted into the radio. Suspect on foot, armed and carrying a child. K9 in pursuit. Do not fire if child is visible. The forest exploded with motion. But nothing moved faster than Max. The terrain was brutal. Roots curled like claws across the trail. Thorns tore through uniforms. Rocks slipped under hurried feet. But Max was relentless. He darted under low-hanging branches, leapt over logs, and closed the gap yard by yard. Huxley was breathing hard now. His stride slowed. Lily cried out, a sound caught between a sob and a scream. Max responded with a snarl that echoed through the trees. And then, he made contact. With one massive leap, Max hit the back of Huxley's leg. Teeth grazing denim, just enough to make the man stumble. Huxley spun, lost balance, and fell. Lily toppling from his grip and rolling into the brush. She screamed. Max didn't go for the kill. He pivoted, bounded toward Lily, and stood over her. Tail bristling, body between her and Huxley. She clutched his fur. Max. She remembered him, even through the fear. Even after the dark, she remembered the dog who once sniffed her at the school playground. The one who used to come with the officers on classroom safety visits. The one they'd said had gone bad. He hadn't. He had come back for her. Huxley rose slowly, blood trickling from his lip. He reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate. Max crouched lower, growling, lips peeling back. But before Huxley could draw whatever he was hiding, drop it. 3 officers emerged from the trees, weapons trained. Perez, Emily, and 2 state troopers. Hands where we can see them. Perez yelled. Huxley didn't resist. Not when he saw Max. Not when he saw the child holding onto the dog like a lifeline. He knew it was over. He didn't drop to his knees for the police. He dropped because Max never did. They cuffed him on the ground while medical officers rushed in for Lily. She was dehydrated, cold, shaking, but she was alive, and she wouldn't let go of Max. Not until they both sat in the back of the medic van together. Not until she whispered into his ear, "You came back for me." And Max, though battered and dirty, rested his head gently in her lap. Back at the precinct, the air was electric. News had spread. The case that haunted the department was closed. The officer behind the trafficking ring had been captured. And the K9 they'd thrown away? He was the one who ended it all. Emily watched as the commissioner approached her and Perez in the hallway. "We'd like to make Max part of the unit again," he said. "Reinstate him." Perez raised an eyebrow. "After what your people did?" Emily didn't answer right away. She looked into the kennel room. Max was asleep on a padded blanket. Lily's stuffed rabbit beside him. For once, his breathing was steady, peaceful. "I think Max is already back on duty," she said quietly. "But this time, he gets to choose where he belongs." In the following days, the evidence came together. Huxley had been working with a network tied to youth outreach shelters. He'd used his position to manipulate cases, steer investigations away, and identify vulnerable children. Max, years ago, had sniffed something in his vehicle, a child hidden in the trunk. That moment had been buried, twisted into misbehavior, and used to justify Max's removal. He hadn't failed. He had gotten too close. But now, everyone knew. Max had never stopped being a hero. The system just needed to catch up. The press called him the dog who brought a city to its knees. Max's story went viral within days. News anchors replayed the chase footage. Photos of him standing protectively over Lily were splashed across every major outlet. Talk shows invited police experts to explain how a dog marked unfit for duty had single-handedly solved a statewide child trafficking case. But behind the applause, the truth unraveled like thread from a wound. And it was uglier than anyone expected. Internal Affairs reopened Max's personnel file. This time, with forensic analysts. They found inconsistencies in the evaluation reports, phrases copy-pasted from prior dismissals of other dogs, signatures signed under pressure, dates that didn't align, and buried in archived body cam footage from Max's final patrol, a clip that had never been reviewed. In it, Max had clearly signaled on Huxley's patrol vehicle, scratching, barking once, sitting, a trained alert. The commanding officer had dismissed it, labeled it as a false alert. Hours later, Max was pulled from duty. The footage was damning. So was the discovery that Max's original handler, Officer Brent Mullins, had filed a complaint about Huxley 2 months before resigning. It was marked unsubstantiated and shelved. Now, it was evidence. The city erupted. Protesters gathered outside City Hall, not with signs demanding justice, but holding printed photos of Max. Children wore paper dog ears. A mural appeared overnight on the side of an elementary school. Max in full K9 gear, standing in front of a silhouetted badge. Beneath it, 3 words: "He never quit." Meanwhile, Max was quiet. He didn't seem to care about the cameras, the praise, or the sudden parade of police officials trying to pose beside him. He still slept in Emily's living room, curled on the same old blanket. He still waited by the door at 7 a.m., like he had somewhere to be. And most days, she let him lead, sometimes to the park, sometimes to the school where Lily had returned. Smiling and shy, she always ran out to greet him. She never needed to say thank you. Max already knew. One afternoon, as Emily fed Max on the porch, Captain Rourke arrived with an envelope in hand. "It's official," he said. "The governor signed it this morning." He held out the document. Reinstatement of K9 Max, Medal of Honor recipient, full benefits, permanent status. Emily looked up. "You're giving him back his badge?" Rourke nodded. "And something else." From his coat pocket, he pulled a small, custom-made harness, sleek black with gold stitching. Across the side in bold, embroidered letters: Max, Guardian. No badge number, no rank, just truth, just legacy. That evening, they held a small ceremony on the precinct lawn. No press, no speeches, just officers, those who knew Max when he was young, and the few who still had the humility to say, "We were wrong." Lily was there, holding her new therapy puppy. But when Max arrived, she ran straight to him, wrapped her arms around his neck. He lowered his head against her shoulder. And for the first time in months, everyone was safe. Later that night, Emily posted a photo of Max lying on his blanket, sunlight falling across his fur. The caption read, "You can chain him, dismiss him, bury him in paperwork, but if there's still a child crying in the dark, he'll find them. Because heroes don't retire. They wait, until the world remembers why they were needed." Autumn had crept into Brookvale. Leaves turned gold, schoolyards filled again with laughter. And in the quiet spaces where trauma once echoed, healing had begun. But one figure remained unchanged, steadfast, silent, ever watching. Max, now officially reinstated, decorated with honors, and hailed as a national hero. Max had become the face of resilience. Police departments across the country re-evaluated their K9 retirement policies. News anchors called him the K9 who changed the system. Yet Max himself never seemed to care for the attention. He still chose the shadows over the spotlight. Still stood guard outside Lily's school on quiet mornings. Still curled up each night beside Emily's bed. Not in triumph, but in peace. The city wanted a ceremony. A televised event at the state capitol. A medal. Speeches from politicians who had never once bent down to look him in the eyes. Emily said no. Instead, she asked for something else. Let him walk through the precinct one last time. Not for the cameras, just for those who knew him before the headlines. And so, one crisp Friday morning, Max walked down the polished hallway of Brookvale PD. No leash, no orders, just soft murmurs of officers standing aside. Hats over hearts. Some reached out and touched his shoulder. Some just watched. And when he reached the far end of the corridor, he stopped, facing the old K9 memorial wall. Dozens of framed photos lined the bricks, dogs who had served and passed. Max's photo wasn't there yet. But there was a space for him. Emily stood beside him, silent. Then quietly, she clipped off his vest. Removed the patch that read Guardian. Laid it at the foot of the wall. Max sat, and for one long moment, the entire precinct stood still. No words, just the sound of a dog, who had been called dangerous, defective, and disposable, receiving the quiet salute of those who now knew better. Later that day, Max and Emily returned to the shelter where it all began. Not to visit, but to adopt. From the far back kennel, a wiry, young shepherd pup barked wildly, untamed, untested, unwanted, just like Max once was. Emily smiled. He's got spirit. Max approached the bars, nose twitching. The puppy immediately stopped barking, lowered his ears, wagged his tail. Max didn't growl, just nudged the gate with his paw. Permission granted. That night, under the soft glow of Emily's porch light, Max lay with the pup tucked beside him. He was older now, his stride slower, his face tinged with gray. But his eyes still held that fire, that unshakable instinct to protect, to serve, to finish what others couldn't even begin. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily and her mother arrived. Lily ran up with a crayon drawing clutched in hand, her and Max standing beside a bright yellow school bus. Smiles wide. I drew us, she beamed. My hero. Emily smiled. Max didn't move, but he didn't need to. His legacy was already drawn. In ink, in memory, in lives saved. And somewhere, in a house across town, another child woke from a nightmare, crying softly in the dark. But not for long, because out there, watching from a porch, tail gently thumping, was a dog who never stopped listening. A dog they once threw away, but who came back, to save them all. They thought he was done, that no one would ever trust him again. But when it mattered most, he didn't hesitate. Not for glory, not for recognition, just for a little girl who needed someone, and a purpose he never forgot. This is Max's story, not of redemption, but of proof that courage, loyalty, and love don't retire. They wait until someone finally listens. If this story moved you, if Max reminded you that loyalty never dies, please consider subscribing to Heroic Animals. We share real stories of animals who defy the odds, who protect, rescue, and inspire. Speech balloon. What did you feel while watching Max's journey? Leave a comment below. Your words help keep these heroes remembered. And don't forget to hit the like button, so more people can discover the courage that walks quietly, on four legs.